Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an exciting episode of Fanzone Debate. Looking forward to this one. We got the number one seed of our tournament, Kirk Kowalkowski, going up against the number 4 seed, Joe Farrelly. Very exciting stuff. Round 2 of the tournament. Looking forward to it. And we got 2 guys here to judge that haven't judged in a long time that were taken out in round 1. Sorry, a lot of my other judges are still playing in this. Guys, we got Bill and Koho join in for this one. I'm looking forward to it. Koho, we'll start with you. Koho, it's been a while since you've been in the judges' seat, but you've been around these parts many moons in both a player and judge capacity, but it's been a while since you judged. You're coming back for a good one. I hope it's going to be a good one. I think it'll be a good one. What are your thoughts on Kirk playing
I'm excited. I get to pass judgment on Kirk after he kicked my ass. No, I'm excited to watch. It's always fun to watch Kirk debate, and I haven't seen Joe debate up close yet, so I'm really excited to see how these two do. It's a tough matchup, but I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, Kirk is not getting out of this easy. He's been waiting a while to get into some regular play and not just be challenging for titles or playing for titles and just some quick matches. And in his first one back, he had to take on Koho. Now he's playing Joe. We're not making it easy on him for sure. So and Bill, this is your first time judging. I'm happy to have you here. You and Jacoby are on my list of people I wanted to get in the judges seat for a while, and Rue too is another one that I would love to get in the judges seat. So, and you said, well, I think I owe you. So,
I mean, after the last match, yes, I do. We won't go behind the scenes, but yeah, this should be fun. I have lost to both of these guys in spectacular fashion, so it's fine. It happens. I'm not bitter that in our last actual trivia match, Joe gave me musicals as his opponent's choice. That will not factor into any of my decision making.
Sounds
at
good.
all. But no, this should be a fun one. I've seen these guys go at it. We know what we're in for. It's gonna be a good time.
So. I think so. Let's bring them in. We'll start by talking to the lower seated player, Joe Farrelly. Joe, it's not like midnight for you right now, right?
Daylight.
Yeah, fantastic. You've got a beautiful tan. It looks like you had a good trip, I hope. And now you're ready to make it happen, and you're playing Kirk. And you guys have actually played before, very early on in your career. This is exciting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's more windburn than a tan, but that's British weather for you. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Like Carnooney and Sia, I'm here to exact my revenge on Kirk. But I think it's going to be close. I think this time some choices of strengths, maybe a little bit more things I've seen. That always is a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. It's nice when the strengths do line up and we can have really good, even conversations and debates through all of the questions. I agree. I think these are really fun questions that we're going to have, but we're going to bring in Kirk. Kirk, welcome. You're back in the debate ring once again. Koho alluded to it, but you played Koho in round 1, and now you're on to play Joe. And like I said, I'm not making it easy on you, but this is how the seedings worked out. And you've played Joe before. You won that one, but your thoughts on going up against him again now that he's a little bit more seasoned in this arena?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this match. My last match, I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to engender any bad feelings before it starts. But being able to pull out a win against a really good competitor who had some really good arguments, really build up my self-esteem after the year I had previously. And I'm going to be honest, watching Joe debate has been, over the past year, has been one of my favorite things. Just watching his game grow and evolve. And I've loved to see it, especially his last match against Rue. Was, I think, just a big signature win for him, especially the way he had to come back and win. So that made me excited for him, but also made me really excited to play him. And it really inspired me to really prep and be ready for this. So kind of a double-edged sword there. But no, I do not think this is going to be easy. It's going to be nothing. I'm playing a completely different player than I did last time I played Joe. His game, like I said, has completely changed and evolved. So I'm really excited for this one.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. This is how it's going to work. So we gave the players some questions based off of categories that they drafted. They are going to debate those tonight before our very souls. So they are each going to get 1 minute to open their argument, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing at the end of the debate. Koho, Bill, and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won the debate. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. So, players, any questions as we get into the first debate?
Good luck, Kyle.
Good luck.
All right, let's do it. All right, we are going to kick it off with the first category, which was in the category of actors and actresses. The question was drafted by Kirk. Question is, which pre-2000s Al Pacino performance was the most deserving of a Best Actor, Supporting Actor Oscar win? I don't think either of you chose the one that he actually won for. So interesting. All right, we are going to go and start with Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
When you talk about most deserving of an Oscar win, I think you got to talk about two things. You got to talk about the quality of the actual performance. Does it deserve the win? And also in the context of the year and what was happening. We talk about Best Supporting Actor or Best Actor. Let's talk about somebody a year he got ripped out of both. He could have been nominated for actor, Best Actor. He was the lead in this movie. Little category fraud. Got him bumped down to Best Supporting, where he was forced to compete with 3 of his co-stars. And we know historically, with few notable exceptions, historically that leads to cannibalization and left Joel Grey to pick up the pieces with a kind of flashy but ultimately shallow performance. Also, just performance-wise, this is out of Pacino's career and out of the 70s in general, his most layered performance, where he shows the most range. It's a very dynamic performance. You see this character go from a very one type of person, black sheep of his family, separate from the empire, to taking it over. You see that whole range within this picture.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
It's not just about what is the best performance. It is also about the competition of that year. What was the most deserving of the Oscar? Thankfully, I've chosen a performance that fits both. It was the most deserving of the Oscar that year, and it's Al Pacino's greatest performance of all time. And I'm talking about The Godfather Part 2. It's not only that competition was more impressive and that he should have deserved out of that. I think the competition for Pacino in other years dips, but it's the best performance, and it's also an amalgamation of the performances that have built up. You look at Pacino's work beforehand in The Godfather and in Dog Afternoon, and the way it brings up and where things, sorry, not Dog Afternoon, Serpico. You look at the way it comes in. It's a combination of those performances, the things that Pacino learns. You see him grow as an actor, and when he comes into that performance in The Godfather Part 2, you have this fantastic range, this mixture of intensity and subtlety and passion, naivety, but a learned and a confident naivety.
Time. Okay. All right, guys. 5-minute freeform. When one of you starts talking, I will come in to give you the 10-second warning at the end, as well as the 1-minute warning up there. If one of you is talking on too long, I will throw up the let's move on, and then the let your opponent talk if you don't shut up. And don't make me do that, because I will send Nick to your house, and you don't want that. So 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Let's look at the nomination for The Godfather. He boycotted it. He didn't think he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And when you're looking at, he said, yes, I should have been nominated for Best Actor, but you're really going to put Al Pacino's performance versus Marlon Brando's? Absolutely not. That's Marlon Brando's movie. It's Marlon Brando's performance. He outshines Pacino in that movie, as do Duvall and as do James Caan.
I would say Brando spends that movie reading cue cards and getting ADR'd, and to say Caan and Duvall do more than him, I just don't think that's right. This is Pacino's movie. I think he does more. He's given more to do. He has more screen time than Brando. Any way you want to quantify it, it is his. And like I said, if he would have been nominated, he would have been the front runner. but he wasn't. He's left with.
But he wasn't the front runner with a supporting actor, let alone an actor.
He was the front runner. He should have won. It was a surprise that Joel Grey run, and you put him against these two other characters who are giving lesser performances in his movie. I think that's widely accepted. He's the best performance of those three, and then his competition is Joel Grey and Eddie Albert. Two people who aren't, two performances that weren't that great. And like I said, Joel Grey is flashy and funny, but it's a very shallow performance. But he picked up the pieces because, like I said, you get cannibalized whenever you're nominated with one or especially two people from your own movie.
Yeah, but Joel Grey manages to outshine one in a musical, one of the greatest Broadway performers of all time in Liza Minnelli. That's why Joel Grey deserves the supporting actor Oscar. But when you look at James Caan and Robert Duvall's performance, you look at Duvall in when they're discussing James Duvall and Caan when they're discussing Vito's shooting. It's an exchange between two actors at the top of their game, showcasing that experience. Sure, Sonny is naive, but Caan is portraying that naivety expertly. Duvall, on the other hand, it's when he's talking the prelude to the whole horsehead scene. It's a restraint and a subtlety, and both of those things are what Pacino learns from. In The Godfather, he learns from Duvall and Caan, which then informs his performance in The Godfather Part 2, where he displays that confident naivety plus the subtlety plus the passion and the rage, like that. The scene where Kay reveals the abortion to him, just with his eyes, he manages to portray this rage and intensity without saying a word, something he wouldn't have been able to do in The Godfather.
I would say that Duvall and Caan, both good performances. I think they're both one note. They're not asked to do too much. Where with Pacino in Godfather 1, you see a range. You see him start as the black sheep, as the outsider, as the one who wants to be something different. And you slowly see that change. If you love his performance in Godfather 2, great. Watch the last 30 minutes of The Godfather, and it's there. Plus, you get everything else.
Throughout.
You have, yeah, but that's all you get in Godfather Part 2. You don't get anything else. You don't get the rest of the range. You don't have a moment like when he shoots Sollozzo. You don't have a moment like the hospital, that scene, that tender moment with his father where he has to decide to protect him. You don't have anything. You have quiet, and you have reserved, and you have intense, and then you have that stereotypical Pacino scream that what he later became kind of a joke for. That's all you get in Godfather 2. You don't get the overall range in the performance that you see in Godfather 1. That's just a fact.
I disagree. I think nothing in Part 1 matches that performance during the reveal of the abortion. And then you have, I knew it was you, the betrayal of Fredo, that whole contemplation, the making that decision to go against family. Not only that, he is outshining one of the greatest actors of all time in the separate role in Robert De Niro. He is managing to do that. He is managing, because that De Niro story is absolutely phenomenal. And Pacino managed to take everything from The Godfather, everything from Scarecrow, everything from Serpico that he has learned from these other actors working, the performance that he's had, and able to channel that into one phenomenal performance, showcasing that range, that intensity, the naivety, the subtlety, the passion, all gets brought out in The Godfather Part 2. Whereas in The Godfather, as you said, it's only in the last 30 minutes that he really starts to grow into that range.
Yeah, no, I mean, he shows the range throughout. I mean, you're saying you're acting as though Godfather 2, he opens up, he narrows down. Godfather 1, he's insecure, he's unsure, he doesn't know what to do. He grows into that role that he's in Godfather 2, and then Godfather 2 is only that. You're mentioning Serpico and Scarecrow, and there's none of those performances in this. This is very much a one note. Like I said, the abortion scene, he has the eyes. I know it was you saying he has the eyes. Like it's good. It's a good level, but he's at this one level. He's not nearly asked to do as much in this. And you look, half the movie is not his. He's sharing the screen with Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro is the one who is actually has a character that is growing and changing and doing different things. He's reflecting Michael's story in the first movie, and you have to have that because an entire film of just Michael at that level would probably be pretty unwatchable.
But it's not. That's the thing. You've said it. It's not unwatchable. You just said he's at that
because
level time, and it should be unwatchable, but it's not. You also look at the competition.
You factor in De Niro there too.
Art Carney is one of the greatest robberies in that thing, and it's completely.
Time. All right, Joe. We're going to start with you for closings. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Art Carney's win in 1975 is often referred to as one of the Oscars' greatest mistakes. 50 years later, Nicholson is great in Chinatown, but it's not that culmination performance like you get in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's not that complete performance, right? You look at Pacino in The Godfather Part 2, and it is a complete performance and an amalgamation of what. The reason Pacino most deserved that is because his performance is the best of that year, and the competition does not live up to it. Secondly, compared with the other, in Part 1, he displays a naivety as an actor, not just as the character. It's the naivety as an actor. That naivety is portrayed well as a character in Part 2, but he manages to bring that through. He learns from Khan and Duval in Godfather Part 1 and able to channel the lessons he learned into his performance in Godfather Part 2. To that point, Khan and Duval display a greater range and produce better performances in The Godfather Part 1 that put Pacino down the list. The win itself is from an actor who manages the win itself against Pacino in 1973 is one who managed to outshine one of the greatest musical stars of all time.
All right, we're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Art Carney was a bad win, but if you look at the other competition that year, you had Dustin Hoffman, you had Albert Finney, you had Jack Nicholson, you had Max Schell. You had some really strong competition. Art Carney shouldn't have won, but that doesn't mean Pacino should have either. Pacino wasn't necessarily the best role that year. In his 72, he was against two co-stars that he outshined on the screen and two lesser actors who gobbled up what was left over from that fight. Yeah, there is naivete in the beginning, but he grows into that role. Whatever he learned from Duvall and Khan, he brings to that role at the end of Godfather 2. As I said, if you love Godfather Part 2, that's there, plus all that other great stuff at the beginning where he becomes that character. You see all of that. I don't see the range and the change that Joe does in Godfather Part 2. I think he's very one note, and as I said, he has to share that screen and that screen time with De Niro, and De Niro's doing the heavy lifting acting wise because his character is actually going through a lot of things, doing different things.
Time. Okay. Bringing the judges. Okay. Judges ready?
Yep.
Okay. Good start. I went with Kirk. I think that that probably pained Kirk a little bit to talk and smack on The Godfather Part 2. Though you like the first one better, right, Kirk?
I do, but they're both great.
Yeah. And I just think that Kirk's description of, how Pacino's performance in Part 1 is just much more layered. There's much more going on, and how the performance in Part 2 isn't necessarily one note, but it's definitely like one thing going up against De Niro, who's doing a lot more and splitting the screen time, whereas Part 1 is more his movie. And I thought the takedown of Brando was very strong as well. I think Joe was going in the right direction to go against Pacino in Part 1, but I think Kirk knows these movies and these performances so well that it was kind of hard for Joe to bring it down in a big way. Koho, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Kirk did something really smart and interesting at the beginning, which was establish what the debate was about. And then Joe agreed as to one half of what that debate was about. And then Kirk didn't fight that half of the debate for most of this. And Joe kind of opened that door up at the end again by bringing up the Art Carney half and like competition being important. And then Kirk had the closing where he slammed that point back down. So I also went with Kirk. I think Kirk was kind of putting the gas down for a lot of it on the performance half, and then on the Oscars half kind of was able to loop that back in the closing. So he came back and got that point for me.
All right, Bill, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
So fun fact, I didn't know what movie he was talking about until like almost the end of his opening minute because I didn't read, so I wouldn't be surprised. So.
You did not say what the movie was. We did not say what
I figured I broke that Da Vinci Code though. It was fine. I did also go with Kirk though. Not for nothing, like everything was great, but I've also never seen The Godfather Part 2. I know. Who would have thought? But Kirk really went over a lot of different scenes of like why that performance was so good. And it's just like, this is his wheelhouse. And you can tell this, like, he knows like this stuff through and through. It was able to paint a more clear picture for me than Joe, but like both of the arguments were great. But it's like that one kind of piece stuck out for me. That's why I went with Kirk. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Kirk wins the first point, but we are going to move on to the second question, which was drafted by Joe in the category of DC. And the question is, which DC Batman character had the most wasted potential? All right. Joe, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
The true wasted potential in a Batman movie, you need look no further than Poison Ivy in Batman and Robin. What starts as a character who is passionate about the environment and fed up with humanity turns into yet another cliched villain who goes against her own principles and does things that are completely contradictory to that established character. You set up a character who wants Mother Nature to flourish and to punish the world of men that hurt her. What we're left with is a character who sidelines her own morals and beliefs to freeze the world and erase the competition so that she can have the man she wants, a man that, again, is completely going against all her principles. She accepts Freeze's plan to freeze the world and attempts to kill his wife so that she can have Freeze to herself. It's a complete destruction of the character in favor of other characters. You set up a character with morals, with principles, with a plan, and halfway through, you just completely throw them away. That is truly wasted potential.
Time. All right. Let's move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think when you look at wasted potential, you have to talk about what you lost, but also what you got instead. So what I picked for wasted potential was Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent in Batman '89. Right off the bat, it's wasted potential because we got Harvey Dent, but we only get half the character, no pun intended. We don't ever see him as Two-Face. We never get to see that transformation. We're teased a Billy D. Williams Two-Face, and we don't get it. And then we know concretely that Billy D. was supposed to appear in Batman Returns and would have been the villain been Two-Face in Tim Burton's third Batman movie. That didn't happen. So not only we denied this really interesting take on Billy D, like a dark Billy D. Williams in a Tim Burton atmosphere, which I think would be really cool. What we got instead was Tommy Lee Jones's dollar store Joker Jack Nicholson imitation instead for Batman Forever. So I think it's also what we lost and the negative we got without that thing, that the vacuum was left. So I think that's definitely the most wasted potential.
Time. Okay. So Billy D. Williams and Poison Ivy. 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
Joe, I would say that you're asking for way too much depth from a Joel Schumacher Batman movie. I think if, in the whole world, there's a potential where Poison Ivy was going to have this interesting, almost anti-hero environmental activist kind of role. But there's no way that was potentially happening in a Schumacher Batman. We knew coming in what Schumacher was doing with these characters, with these rules. It was pretty obvious that it was only going to get worse. He's cranking it up to 11 for Batman Forever. I don't think, this is a movie that was mandated to sell toys. That's why this movie was put into production. So I don't think the fact that you're looking at this and saying, oh, there was potential for this great deep character with Poison Ivy, I don't think that's there at all.
But we get it at the beginning. You get that at the end. She has the most wasted potential because you get that at the beginning. You see her when she's in the temple, she's at the laboratory at the beginning, when she visits the observatory, she speaks to Bruce Wayne. The potential is there, but it's once she encounters Freeze, it's at that point the potential gets completely thrown away because the whole morals are completely sacrificed. What you're talking about is really casting, not a wasted potential of a character, and the benefit of hindsight. What you get in Batman '89 is the suave DA in Billy D. Williams with the name Harvey Dent, which, as a nod to fans, he's going to become Two-Face at some point. But nothing that you're actually given on screen shows the potential for what's going to come. It's only with the benefit of hindsight that we know that. With Poison Ivy, what you get is what is displayed on screen in the first half of that movie versus what is displayed on screen in the second half of that movie, a complete destruction and a contradiction of characters. She wants plants to flourish and teams up with a guy who wants to freeze the world. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. You can put that on the poster for any Schumacher Batman movie. I think with Billy D. Williams, there is potential. You have the character there on film, and you've cast a really interesting actor for that role. And we know concretely
But there's no nod to it in the film.
But the character is the nod. We know who Harvey Dent is, so we know that like early drafts of scripts were written with this character in it, with the Harvey Dent character in it, the Billy D. Williams version for the Tim Burton movie. So we know that potential exists for this to happen, and we were robbed of that. I think it'd be really cool to see the smooth, like kind of like dark Billy D. Williams turning into Two-Face, and what he would do with that character would be so much better than what was actualized with Tommy Lee Jones.
We know that Will Smith could have played Neo at some point, but it's not what we get. The potential is what we're given on screen. In terms of the series, Lee Jones is a recast Billy D. Williams, so you have eventually the fully realized state of that character. But what you don't get, what you don't get is you don't get this. This is what we're going to give you. This is the character we're presenting you. Actually, you know what? We're just going to scrap all that halfway through the movie. You've given us the potential. You've given us a character who is, and in other media, been displayed as that female empowerment. She starts that way, and then it just completely gets sidelined. Harvey Dent in '89 takes nothing away. Making Harvey Dent Two-Face in '89 itself takes away from the Wayne, the Jack Napier, and the Vicky Vale story. You don't watch '89 thinking, "Oh, sure, it would be great if there was another villain for the Joker to team up with here." It's just you've got Billy D. Williams being the suave DA. That's what you need.
I'm talking about future potential, where beyond that movie, which is what was set up. Like I said, that potential literally exists. You could go and find scripts that exist with this character in it. You say that was realized Tommy Lee Jones? No, because we didn't get Burton's version of the character. We got Joel Schumacher's, which would have been different. Tommy Lee Jones. You mentioned Will Smith as Neo. This isn't like a potential rumored casting. He was Harvey Dent in the movie. He was Two-Face. Pre-Two-Face, the character existed, and they just never went in with it. Like I said, you're asking too much. You're watching basically a cartoon. You're watching a modernized version of Batman '66, and you want this deep, female empowered social activist character. And but do you really expect? You like you said, doesn't make sense. What in these movies makes sense? It made diamonds power ice machines. It makes nothing makes sense. Why are you expecting? There's no potential for anything to make sense in these movies. So why are you focused on this one thing?
Because you've given it. You've spent that first half of the movie building up this character, only to completely throw it away. Nothing. Billy D. Williams in Batman '89 presents nothing on screen that shows this is going to be a great villain. This is going to be this, or this is going to be anything other than what you're presented with. Poison Ivy, on the other hand, is said, this is what she is, this is who she is, and it's scrapped.
And I also want to just say, as Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy, I think she kills it in this role. I think she knows exactly what movie she's in. I think she leans in the campy femme fatale, and the rest of the movie is a dumpster fire, but she's great in it.
Time. Okay. Kirk, you're closing first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Joe's trying to sell Harvey Dent in Batman '89 as if he's not even there. The character literally exists in the film. He is Harvey Dent. We know that eventually Harvey Dent is going to become Two-Face. The potential that exists is the future potential within the franchise to make him Harvey Dent, which was the original plan, and which would have been great and so much better than what we got. So there was potential. Joe's going to try and tell you there's no potential because he was just Harvey Dent, but he was Harvey Dent. That's Two-Face. He wants sense out of Schumacher Batman movies. Like I said, these are cartoons. You don't get any tonal or character consistency throughout. So I don't know why he expects, just because they have one scene of Poison Ivy espousing her views of environmentalism, whatever, that he expects that to continue. And if it did, who cares? Is that going to make this movie better? No, it's still going to be a terrible movie. I think the fact that they let her lean into that femme fatale thing and didn't make it more serious is the best part. She knew what movie she was in, and she gave a pretty good performance, all things considered.
Time. Joe, we're moving over to you. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
On the one hand, you have a character who, within their movie, doesn't really do much. You've got a cool, suave actor who's able to carry a good role, and that's pretty much it. You have a name familiar to fans, played by a recognized face, who commands the screen for the limited time he has, enough to be memorable for later. On the other hand, you have a character who showcases their personality, their morals, and their intentions, only to completely sideline them, because the filmmakers didn't know what to do with her and turn her into a glorified henchman or henchwoman. It's not the fault of Batman 89 that what was teased didn't come to fruition in later movies. We're talking about Batman 89. That's what we're talking about. And Dent and Williams do exactly what need to be done in Batman 89. There's nothing that Billy Dee Williams could have done or that they could have done with Harvey Dent's character that would have made Batman 89 any better, or Batman Returns for that matter. The character's potential in 89 is to tease something for later, and Billy Dee Williams realizes that potential perfectly, and it does that perfectly. What Batman and Robin does for Ivy is the exact opposite, showcases a different kind of villain and to obliterate the character completely later.
Time. Oh boy.
I just realized I still had that off. I'm sorry. I'm so used to while backstage turning it off.
It's all right. Star Trek's cool.
All right. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Bill.
Oh, I'm going first. Jeez.
You're going
first. Yeah, this was very good, but I ultimately decided to go with Joe on this one, mainly because while Kirk was bringing up a lot of great points, but I think Joe kept leading back into, well, no, this is like the character, not the person. While it would have been great to see Billy Dee Williams, technically we did get it later in the Lego Batman movie, but that's neither here nor there. No one brought that up. You would have got immediate points from me if you did. It was fine. But when Joe kept going on for like, well, we saw that character get realized in later films, but we never got Poison Ivy realized. And I think that's kind of what won the argument for me. It's like, no, that character was completely disserviced and nothing good in films has been done with that since. So that's the great shame of that. So that's why I went with Joe.
Okay. Yeah, this was weird. I feel like we were fighting like two different fights, but kind of the same thing. It was bizarre. Because I do think that Kirk went beyond the actor in the sense that, like, I think what Kirk was fighting was like, we got the tease of a Billy Dee Williams Two-Face, and what we got instead was a knockoff Joker and a really bad Tommy Lee Jones performance. And what we would have gotten with Billy Dee would have been better. So I see where he was coming from, and I see where Joe was coming from and being like, at the beginning, the setup for Ivy is really good, and then they just like throw it away. So a little bit different, maybe a semantic thing. I don't know. I ultimately did go with Kirk. I thought it was close though. I think that Joe kind of bringing down Kirk's for the main fight worked for me, but I thought the closings, Kirk kind of edged Joe out by saying everything about how Thurman knows exactly what movie she's in and doing that character justice. And yeah, like, it's silly, but the whole movie is ridiculous and silly. And I thought that by Joe, in Joe's closing, talking about how the 89 Batman, like Billy Dee Williams, like, we saw the potential, the full potential of what that character was. Like, I don't think that worked, and I don't think that's true, frankly. But I just think the way that he worded that in his closing didn't quite stick the landing for me. So it was a close one, but I did ultimately go with Kirk. Koho, you're deciding.
I think that Joe, from jump, put his foot to the gas and was leading this debate for almost the full 5 minutes. I think that he made great points on Poison Ivy at the beginning, and basically made 3 points and just hammered those 3 points for 5 minutes, while never truly attacking Kirk's overall point about Two-Face being that, like, Kirk made the point in his opening that about what we, not just what we got, but what we could have gotten with this character that exists across the two movies being the same character, even though they're different actors. And I think that Joe kind of left that point alone for most of the fight while just focusing on just the 89. And then both brought up outside material about their own characters, but like in a way that helped and hurt each other in weird ways. So I kind of had to throw a lot of what I heard in the main rounds out because they kept negating each other and themselves. And I basically listened for the closings where I think Joe actively helped Kirk's argument when he explained why Harvey Dent is a cool character in 89 and how there's room for growth, like inadvertently explain why there's room for growth for Harvey Dent in 89. So I went with Kirk.
Wow. Okay.
Well played, Joe. Well played.
That's very good.
Kirk wins the second point. That means that Joe needs to hit this one in order to send it to the next question. We are looking at the category of sci-fi icons. The question is, which 20th century sci-fi icons first entry best set up their franchise? So Kirk, you're kicking this one off. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
When you're setting up a franchise, what you need is to present something more than is the sum of its parts in the film itself. You need world building, you need lore, you need mythology, but you also need characters that you care about and a story that you want to continue to follow. As well as you just need to put it in a package that is going to make people interested to come back and want to see more. And all those things, I think what qualifies most is the Matrix. The Matrix brings something completely new that we had never seen before. And from the opening scene where you see Trinity fighting in the bullet time and the wire foo and, disappearing in the phone, what's going on? You see that again as we go on and Neo comes out of its pod. This is just a whole new world here opened up to us that we want to explore beyond one film and one movie. Even though I think Matrix is a great story, it does a great job of setting up this entire world that we're going to explore in future movies.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Joe. Joe, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Back to the Future is the perfect movie. From start to finish, it is tight with no fat whatsoever. It works perfectly as a standalone film, but within that, manages to set up its franchise and build a world full of rich characters, story beats, and a setting that provides everything that is needed for the trilogy. You have the relationship between the McFlys and the Tannins, Marty's fear of failure, the town of Hill Valley and its history. Even ancillary characters like Strickland have this history built in. Back to the Future set up a trilogy that feels like one story, told across 3 parts, and that comes down to the world and the characters created by Robert Zemeckis, the rest of the cast and crew in that world, Hill Valley, and Back to the Future. It's a perfect trilogy that manages to repeat story beats and even revisit the first movie in the second movie. You're talking about setting up the franchise. When your second movie is basically a revisit to the world of the first, literally the events of the first, I don't think you can get better and a better setup than Back to the Future.
Time. Okay. So The Matrix versus Back to the Future, 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Okay, without doubt, we've chosen the 2 best sci-fi movies. But apart from that, I think The Matrix, the issue of The Matrix, it feels so separate from Reloaded and Revolutions. I think you look at what happens in Revolutions and even Resurrections later on, most of the resolving is plot points from Reloaded rather than The Matrix. The Matrix ends on a world where anything is possible, and no one ever does anything better than flying.
Joe, here's the problem. You're talking about the sequels. This question is not about payoff. It's about setup. It's about what is set up in the first movie. And Back to the Future, you said yourself, it's a perfect standalone story. It's about 2 hours and 56 minutes long. 251 minutes of that is a completely self-contained closed circuit story. Yeah. There's nothing in there that has any interest in setting anything up in the future. You get a 5-minute stinger at the end that says to be continued, that sets up a sequel, another situation, but it doesn't set up a franchise. There's nothing there. You're talking about things that happen in part 2 that retcon part 1, but there's nothing in part 1 that tells you this is going to happen or even needs to happen or wants to happen.
But we're saying best set up their franchise, not best. Had the best setup for a potential franchise. It's best set up their franchise. The Matrix tells its story and is done with it. Reloaded brings you into the world of Zion, brings in all these new characters, brings in the Architect, the Merovingian, Seraph, the Keymaker. That's all done in Reloaded. That's the franchise. But it's not done in the Matrix. The Matrix gives you Neo, Trinity, Smith, Morpheus, and the Matrix itself. But all of that stuff is resolved. It's only in Matrix Reloaded that it brings back. Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions film back to back, both released in the same year, because that is the story. The Matrix doesn't really do much setup for that story, whereas Back to the Future, on the other hand, it doesn't not just a setup of the story. It is a setup of the world, the characters, these repeated beats, the manure stuff, all this other stuff. This is all stuff that comes in because it was all set up in one. Right? It's like what George Lucas says about Star Wars, and that it rhymes. Back to the Future, that's what it does. It rhymes. It goes over these, tells them in different ways, tells the conflict between the McFlys and the Tannins. Even look at like the fact that the McFlys all look like Michael J. Fox and Leah Thompson. That's basically the setup of the incestuous stuff in the first one.
That's great, but you have to look at the fact that none of that is set up in your first movie. You talk about none of that stuff. All the seeds are planted in the first movie. Like, it's not obvious, not sold you, but like I said, those seeds are planted in the first movie in the Matrix. You get all that lore and backstory. When Smith tells the story of the first Matrix, it's almost like a creation story. Like, there's this whole world building behind it. No, you don't get, like, you're not given Zion. Zion is roughly mentioned. Somebody building the Matrix is roughly, you're not given the architect, but those seeds are planted for the future movies. There's nothing. Back to the Future itself is not even curious about doing anything else with these movies, doing anything else with time travel. It's about this one situation. It's about these characters in this situation, and then even the sequel is just it's going to be, even the setup is it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be more I hope I don't bang my mom hijinks. That's what you're going to get with what they're selling with the second movie. They do retcon in the first one, but like I said, they have to retcon it because there's nothing in the first movie to set up a sequel or set up a franchise.
Set up the sequel except for the entire end scene of the movie. But my point was, you just mentioned Smith's stuff about the first Matrix, which again is completely negated by the architect talking about the previous version, the previous ones. You know, that none of that is mentioned in Smith's side. So Smith is well aware of previous Matrixes, but not previous ones the architect mentions. Again, the Matrix Reloaded is really the setup for the story and for the franchise. Everything that is introduced in Reloaded is what is paid off in Revolutions and Resurrections. But with Back to the Future, you have the story beats, you have the conflict between the McFlys and the Tannins, you have the relationship between Doc and Marty. Marty wanting to save Doc, and Doc not wanting to change history. All this stuff, and it's brought into 2, and it's brought into 3, and it feels like a continuation of that story. From 1 to 3 feels like a full story. Whereas with the Matrix, you have the Matrix, then you have Reloaded and Revolutions and Resurrections, which is
all built off of the seeds planted, set up in the first movie. I think that makes it better that you planted the seeds. You're not given everything. You're just fed out a little bit at a time, and it expands. Where with your movie, they said, okay, we got to do a sequel. Let's look at the movie after the fact. Let's look at the movie we made. Let's go back and retcon and do all these different things. But none of that was set up within the film itself. You don't see Marty wandering around from the future or anything. There's no, what happens here? And like I said, you get a 5-minute stinger at the end to set up a cash-in sequel for like another comedy situation, but you don't get a setup for a franchise story. This movie is not interested in setting that up.
No, I think what you look at with the Matrix, you get this fantastic dystopian sci-fi, which is a great trans allegory. When Reloaded rolls around, it's just dystopian, it's just sci-fi. It loses what makes it special.
Time. Joe, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
With Back to the Future, you get a world full of characters, all with a history that feels real. Back to the Future gives us the characters, the locations, the themes, the story beats that get revisited, repeated throughout parts 1 and 2, and all revolves around things that we are given in the first movie, those story beats and those themes. While the Matrix gives us some characters and the basic story, that world isn't properly fleshed out until Matrix Reloaded, and that creates a disconnect between the Matrix and its sequels. Where Back to the Future succeeds is that it works as a standalone, but when viewed as a trilogy, it connects perfectly with all its sequels. Whereas the Matrix will always feel separate from its sequels, as the world of Zion, Neo's true purpose, and most of the characters that feature in the climax aren't introduced to us until Reloaded. The Matrix Reloaded is the true jumping off point of the Matrix franchise because it sets up the story beats, the main themes. It completely disregards a lot of the themes of the first Matrix, but Reloaded is a full setup of that franchise, whereas Back to the Future continues and feels like one story told across 3 parts.
Time. All right. We're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Joe said himself, the ideas from the Matrix are fleshed out in the sequels. That's what a franchise does. It doesn't give you everything all at once. It plants seeds. You get history, you get mythology, you get lore, you get all these things, all this world building that you're going to learn later in these other movies. With Back to the Future, he's talking about some one-off comedy beats that get repeated in future sequels. That's all he gets. There's nothing there. If you turn off Back to the Future at 2 hours and 51 minutes, there is absolutely nothing there that makes you think, oh, wow, I need to see what happens next with these characters. I want to see what more they do. Because the movie has zero curiosity about that thing. It's about Marty's one story here, getting to the past, getting back to the future. That's all this is. You don't have a lore. You don't have a history. Yeah, they take everything from Matrix grows and becomes more. With Back to the Future sequels, you just get more of the same because that's all there is. You need more than to be continued at the end of your movie to set up a franchise. The Matrix has all the elements throughout the movie spread out that plants those seeds and
time. All right. Bring in the judges.
I never wanted to jump in a debate more in my life. I know how Cody feels now.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Koho, we're kicking it off with you.
I think this was around where I think one person had a really great answer and just couldn't quite articulate what it was in their head that they were arguing for. And I think that Kirk had such a great pick with the Matrix and did his best to try and explain it. But I think Joe just had counters on counters as to like arguments for why the Matrix is there, with the disconnect. And Kirk didn't quite give me enough to defend that. So I have to go, Joe.
Okay. Bill.
First off, bold choice, guys, to both pick movies that were not designed to have sequels. That's a hard road to hoe. Listening to the back and forth, and I love both of these movies, and I am on record as saying how much I hate what happened to the Matrix post the first one. But going off of what everyone was saying, I ultimately went with Kirk, and I thought he did a great job of explaining, yeah, all these things are done in part 2, but because they had such a good foundation in part 1. That's what a setup does. And that's ultimately why I ended up going with him on that one. But that pains me because there's one of those movies I clearly love more than the other one. And that's what, yeah. So a little bit about me as a human being. So.
All right. I'm not going to drag this out. I went with Kirk. And I don't know what Koho's smoking. I got to be honest. I thought that, no offense to Joe, like I said from the top, I think that Joe's a great debater. I think he does a great job here. I thought Kirk kind of really won this. Well, this was his strongest one, I thought. I thought that what Bill was saying about taking the foundations from the first one is what kind of makes those sequels and the rest of the franchise work. I thought that the way that Joe approached the question just didn't work for me. I think his pick is good. I think arguably it's a very, very good pick. But it's the baby. But it just didn't work for me. His argument for Back to the Future. I think Kirk did a great job just demolishing that argument. And I feel bad because like I said, I think Joe is a great debater who does a great job, but I think Kirk really took this one and went for it. I really thought someone was going to pick the Terminator. That didn't happen. But anyway, your winner by way of knockout is Kirk Kowalkowski. We're going to start by talking to Joe. Joe, obviously not the type of way you want to go out in the tournament, but I think with your success, here and in Fandom and even in Melee, sometimes something might have to give at some point. And I think if you were going to go out to someone, it might as well be the former champion who held the belt for over a year. And it's like going up against you in Fandom. It's just like a scary and hard feat to do. But I still think you played great today. I think you had really strong arguments on a couple of those questions, and I would have liked to see your Monty Python take as well. I think that would have been fun, but unfortunately we didn't quite get there. Joe, your thoughts on the match today?
It is a little rough. Godfather is what it is. Sci-fi icons, again, maybe it was just the way I articulated it, maybe not as clear. The Batman one's kind of rough because obviously when we do these choices, it was Poison Ivy, Batman, Robin, Harvey Dent, Batman 89. So obviously I prepare for just Batman 89, and then everything from all the sequels comes out. So that's a little bit rough to take that one. Obviously, argument was expanded a little bit more than I expected it to be. But don't worry, the Python one would have been a clean sweep for me. So it's
cool. Joe, this does mean you're out of the tournament, but we will see you back in debate. I like having you around here. I think you bring really interesting perspectives to a lot of these questions that I'm not even thinking about when writing them. So you've played a lot of pretty great people in your career. You've played Rue, you've played Kirk. I think have you played Jacoby? Yeah. So you've played a lot of champions and champion level players. Is there anybody yet that is on your list of I would really love to sit and debate with that person?
I mean, Cody, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, there's a few out there, but I want to. Different people would be nice, just people I haven't fought before, because I want to, like you said, that different perspective is always great. And I put this one on myself. I didn't talk about how great Pirates was, and I didn't talk about how much J.K. Rowling sucked. So that's on me, because that's ticks across the board. But
that's fair. Joe, I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for being here, man, as we bring in the winner, Kirk. What's going on, man?
Whew, okay. That happened.
Yeah, that's 2 in a row.
Yeah.
That's nasty. You're going through this tournament just chopping up people. What and good players too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Koho knows how Joe feels in this instance. And I think too, on top of it, to win on questions that or on categories that aren't you're good at, but you drafted categories that weren't your normal bread and butter because you couldn't use some of your normal stuff due to the rules of eligibility and whatnot, and you're still coming up with just big points. Is this now oh God, now I have to keep performing at this level in order to get to where you need to go, or do you just take it a match at a time? How are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I feel now beating Koho, and I said this in my match last time because, like I said, I wasn't just sucking up. Koho played a great match. Being able to come out of that the match the way I did really boosted my confidence and made me know okay, I can still do this. And so coming into the Joe fight, and I'll talk about Joe for a minute. I think Joe is the next big thing in this league. I think Joe is going to be in contenders matches and titles matches, moving forward here. And I think he's going to really set himself up here. So again, the scoreboard won't show it, but I think he played great. He caught me off guard on a lot of stuff. I had to backpedal and really think on my feet. And he should take it as a compliment that I was prepared as I was, because I knew I couldn't sleep on him and I needed to be ready every step of the way. So I know it's not going to get easier. I know because the goal is Cody and getting back up and, trying to beat him again. And whoever I got next, between him and them, then and now. But yeah, it's one match at a time. Now I'll relax and breathe for a little bit, and then gear myself back up. But yeah, the fact that I was able, like I said, the Koho, my match with Koho got me okay, I can do this. And now okay, I can do this, and kind of
Yeah.
just keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. And we, the people at home know who you're playing next. We don't. We haven't shot it yet. But you're going to be playing the winner of the number 6 and 7 seed. So you got the number 6 seed, Nazario Montenegro. He beat Bill in order to get to that spot. And the number 7 seed, Brian Michaels, beat the number 2 seed, Cameron Holtzman, to get here. So 2 lower seeded players who upset their higher seeded players are playing off, and you're playing one of them. You've played Nazario, right?
Yes,
In a title
yes.
match? Yeah. But Brian's the dark horse of this whole tournament, I think. And again, we don't know who won, but who do you want to go up against out of those two?
I mean, a rematch with Nazario would be nice. I'd like to. Playing him was fun and interesting, and he's a tough guy to prepare for because he's kind of like he's real unorthodox in the way he fights.
He's a wackadoodle.
He is. So that'd be interesting. But Brian and I have been disagreeing with each other for the past 5 years. So to do it like an official, platform would be interesting. So yeah, we'll see. But I mean, it's nameless great faces. Whoever comes next, I gotta get back to Cody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kirk, congrats on the win. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the finals. Let's get final thoughts here today from Bill.
Yeah, I think we've all been privy to Kirk Kowalkowski ass whooping, so I know very much how Joe feels. It's hard, to come back from that, but Joe's got it. I think he's like 3 or 4 minor tweaks away from being a well-oiled machine in this, because that's just the kind of guy Joe is. When he sets his sights on it, he's going to excel at it. And I guarantee you he will make the adjustments necessary going forward. And I would not like to be the next person to face him. So.
That's fair. And Koho, your thoughts?
It's a lot more fun being on this side of the desk. I had a great time. I actually had a really great time judging and watching instead of being the one getting beat up on. But they both did really well. It was really fun to listen to them debate and to see the different sort of thought processes they had to answering each question and how those two go head to head. So that was really interesting, really fun to watch. So Kirk is scary and Joe is scary, and I can't wait to see where each goes next.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Kirk and Joe. Thank you to Bill and Koho, and thank you to the rest of the Fanzone team behind the scenes. I've been Tim. We will see you guys next time with another great match. Until then, have a good one. Peace out.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.